It was a quiet Tuesday morning at First National Bank on Maple Street. The sun had just risen high enough to peek through the large glass windows, spilling golden light across the polished marble floors. The air smelled faintly of coffee and fresh paper, a comforting blend that made the bank feel almost cozy despite its formal atmosphere. Customers came and went, some chatting about their weekend plans while others stood silently in line, staring at their phones or watching the clock on the wall tick by. In one corner of the room near the coffee station where a few mugs sat half empty, an elderly man shuffled in slowly. His name was Mr. Thompson, and he was no stranger to the bank staff. He visited regularly to deposit his pension check, always polite, but rarely talkative. Over the years, he had become something of a familiar, first a quiet, harmless figure who blended into the background of daily life. Today, however, there was something different about him. Instead of carrying his usual leather wallet, Mr. Thompson dragged behind him a dusty burlap sack. It looked old, worn out from years of use, with frayed edges and dirt smudges along its surface. What caught everyone's attention wasn't just the sack itself, it was how heavy it seemed. Each step Mr. Thompson took caused the sack to scrape against the floor with a dull thud, drawing curious glances from those nearby. At first, people didn't think much of it. Maybe he was hauling around old clothes or books, they guessed. Perhaps he'd decided to clean out his attic and drop off some items at the charity shop later. A few even chuckled softly, amused by the sight of the frail old man struggling with such a bulky load. But as he approached the counter, dragging the sack with visible effort, the mood in the room shifted. When Mr. Thompson finally reached the front of the line, he placed the sack on the counter with a loud thud that echoed through the otherwise peaceful space. Everyone turned to look. The teller, a young woman named Sarah, frowned slightly, leaning forward to get a better view. "Mr. Thompson," she began hesitantly, "what exactly is this?" For a moment, the old man didn't respond. He simply stood there, his cloudy eyes scanning the room as if memorizing every detail. Then, without saying a word, he reached into the sack and pulled out a gun? No, not just any gun. It was sleek, silver, and unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Its design was otherworldly, with intricate engravings that shimmered even in the dim light. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Is that real?" someone whispered nervously. Before anyone could react, Mr. Thompson set the strange weapon down gently and began pulling out more objects from the sack. One by one, he revealed glowing orbs that pulsed softly, small devices resembling miniature drones, and what appeared to be a crystalline tablet etched with symbols no one could decipher. Every new item added to the growing sense of unease in the room. The laughter that had filled the air moments earlier evaporated completely. People exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to laugh, scream, or run for the exits. Finally, a middle-aged man standing near the back spoke up. "What is all this stuff?" Mr. Thompson straightened up, his weathered hands resting lightly on the edge of the counter. For the first time since entering the bank, he looked directly at the crowd. His gaze was steady, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but carried a weight that silenced every whisper in the room. "These are tools," he said simply. "Tools I've kept hidden for decades." Hidden? Decades? The words hung in the air like smoke, leaving everyone confused and increasingly uneasy. Someone muttered under their breath, "Is this some kind of prank?" Another person chimed in louder, "Maybe he's lost his mind." But then Mr. Thompson did something that erased all doubt. Picking up one of the glowing orbs, he pressed a tiny button on its surface. Instantly, the orb levitated, spinning slowly in place before emitting a soft hum that resonated through the room. Everyone took a step back, their hearts pounding. "This isn't science fiction," Mr. Thompson continued, his tone grave. "And if you want to live long enough to see tomorrow, you'll listen closely." His words sent a chill down everyone's spine. No one moved. No one spoke. They were too stunned to do anything but stare as the old man reached for the crystalline tablet and pressed another button. Suddenly, holographic images sprang to life above it, projecting scenes so vivid and terrifying that they left the entire room breathless. The images showed alien ships, massive, menacing vessels unlike anything humanity had imagined. Planets, burned in their wake, civilizations reduced to ash. Cities crumbled under beams of energy and skies darkened with smoke and fire. It was like watching a nightmare unfold in full color. "These beings have been watching us for centuries," Mr. Thompson explained, his voice steady despite the chaos brewing in the room. "They call themselves the Vernok. Their technology far surpasses ours and their intentions are clear: conquest." A collective shiver ran through the crowd. Was this some elaborate hoax? Or was there truth to his claims? "The reason I'm showing you this now," he continued, "is because they're preparing to strike, and unless we act quickly, none of us will survive." The room fell deathly silent. Even the children playing near the entrance stopped mid-giggle, sensing the tension in the air. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, as if on cue, the lights flickered violently, plunging the bank into darkness. Screams erupted as panic spread like wildfire. Through the chaos, Mr. Thompson remained calm. He activated another device, bathing the room in an eerie blue glow. "Stay close," he instructed. "We don't have much time." As the frightened customers huddled together, clutching each other for comfort, the old man began unpacking more gadgets from the sack. Whatever was coming, it was clear that Mr. Thompson had been preparing for this moment for a very long time, and now the rest of them would have to trust him if they wanted to make it out alive. The eerie blue glow from Mr. Thompson's gadgets cast long, distorted shadows across the walls of the bank. The once familiar space now felt alien, as though reality itself had shifted. People clung to each other in small clusters, their faces pale and eyes wide with fear. No one dared to speak above a whisper, but the murmurs were constant, questions overlapping, theories forming, and doubts swirling like storm clouds. What is this?" a young woman stammered, clutching her toddler tightly against her chest. Her voice trembled, breaking the fragile silence that had settled after the initial panic. "It looks like some kind of sci-fi movie," muttered a teenager, leaning against the wall, his phone forgotten in his hand. "But it can't be real, right?" No one answered him directly. Instead, all eyes turned back to Mr. Thompson, who stood calmly at the center of the chaos. He was still unpacking items from the burlap sack, placing them carefully on the counter like pieces of a puzzle. Each object seemed stranger than the eye. Last, a metallic sphere covered in blinking lights, a handheld device that emitted low-frequency vibrations, and what appeared to be a transparent map filled with glowing lines and symbols. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah, the teller, finally spoke up, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to stay composed. "What are you doing? What do you mean by they're preparing to strike? Who is coming for us?" The old man paused mid-motion, his hands hovering over the crystalline tablet. For a moment he didn't respond, as if weighing whether or not to reveal more. Then, with a deep sigh, he straightened up and faced the crowd. His expression was grim, but there was also a flicker of determination in his eyes. "I told you," he said slowly, enunciating every word so no one could misunderstand. "These beings, they call themselves the Vernok. They've been observing Earth for centuries, studying our weaknesses, waiting for the perfect moment to invade. That moment has arrived." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Some people shook their heads in disbelief while others exchanged horrified glances. A middle-aged man near the front stepped forward, his fists clenched. "This has to be a joke," he exclaimed, his voice rising with frustration. "You're just an old guy with weird toys. How can we believe anything you're saying?" Before anyone else could react, Mr. Thompson reached for one of the devices on the counter, a drone-like gadget no bigger than a shoebox. With a single press of a button, the device sprang to life, zipping around the room at incredible speed. It moved so fast that it was almost impossible to follow, scanning every inch of the space with precision. Moments later, it returned to Mr. Thompson, projecting a detailed blueprint of the entire building onto the wall. The image was astonishingly accurate, showing not only the layout of the bank, but also hidden passageways and ventilation systems that even the staff hadn't known existed. A maintenance worker standing near the back let out a startled cry. "That's impossible. How does it know that?" The murmurs grew louder, a mix of awe and terror spreading through the crowd. Whatever, skepticism began to crumble under the weight of undeniable evidence. This wasn't a prank, it wasn't a hallucination. Something extraordinary and terrifying was happening right before their eyes. As if on cue, the lights flickered again, this time violently enough to plunge the room into complete darkness. Screams erupted instantly, echoing off the walls, as people scrambled to find shelter or grab onto someone nearby. Children wailed and adults shouted over each other, trying to regain control of the situation. "Stay calm." Mr. Thompson's voice cut through the noise like a knife, sharp and commanding. To everyone's astonishment, the orbs floating above. The counter responded immediately, brightening to illuminate the entire room in a soft, pulsating glow. Gradually, the screams subsided, replaced by ragged breathing and nervous whispers. "They're here," Mr. Thompson announced gravely, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Heads whipped toward the windows. Outside, the sky had darkened unnaturally, as though night had fallen prematurely. Shadows moved across the horizon, shapes too large and too fluid to belong to any human-made aircraft. Low-pitched hums vibrated through the ground, rattling the glass panes and sending shivers down everyone's spines. "What are those things?" someone whispered hoarsely, pointing at the ominous silhouettes looming closer. "They're ships," Mr. Thompson replied simply. "Scouts, most likely. They're mapping the area, searching for signs of resistance." "Resistance?" The word hung, heavy in the air, sparking both dread and resolve among the frightened patrons. If these aliens truly intended to attack, then fighting back might be their only chance of survival. But how could ordinary people possibly stand against such advanced technology? "We need to leave." "Now," Mr. Thompson urged, his voice firm. "But how?" cried a woman near the entrance, gesturing frantically at the sealed doors. Earlier attempts to open them had failed. They wouldn't budge, no matter how hard anyone pushed or pulled. For the first time since entering the bank, Mr. Thompson allowed himself a faint smile, a weary, determined expression that hinted at years of preparation. Without another word, he retrieved a cylindrical device from the sack and aimed it at the ceiling. Pressing a button, he unleashed a beam of energy that sliced through the roof like butter. Fresh air poured in, carrying with it the scent of rain and burning metal. "Follow me," he instructed, climbing onto a nearby desk to reach the opening. One by one, the stunned customers hesitated before following his lead. Some climbed reluctantly, their movements stiff with fear, while others scrambled upward with desperate urgency. As they emerged into the open air, the full extent of the invasion became horrifyingly clear. Above them, massive alien ships dominated the sky, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. Below, the streets were eerily deserted, save for abandoned cars and scattered debris. Buildings smoldered in the distance, their windows shattered and walls scorched black. The world they knew, their homes, their jobs, their routines, had been transformed into a war zone overnight. "Where do we go?" Sarah asked, tears streaming down her face as she struggled to keep pace with the group. Her question echoed the thoughts of everyone present. "There's a safe zone," Mr. Thompson replied without slowing down. "But getting there won't be easy." As they navigated the desolate cityscape, dodging overturned vehicles and avoiding areas where strange, mechanical creatures prowled, the truth about Mr. Thompson began to unravel. He wasn't just an ordinary retiree. He was part of a covert organization tasked with monitoring extraterrestrial threats. "You mean, you knew this would happen?" Sarah accused, her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. "Yes, Mr. Thompson admitted, his shoulders sagging slightly under the weight of guilt. "But I also know how to fight back." Reaching the outskirts of town, they stumbled upon a fortified bunker guarded by armed soldiers. Inside, scientists worked feverishly to reverse engineer the alien tech Mr. Thompson had salvaged. "This is our chance," he told the group. "With your help, and theirs, We can turn the tide. Though fear still lingered, a spark of hope ignited within them. Together, they vowed to stand against the invaders, not just for themselves, but for the future of humanity. As the battle loomed ahead, Mr. Thompson reminded them of one thing. Even the smallest act of courage can change the course of history. And so, amidst the ruins of their world, a ragtag team of survivors prepared to face the unimaginable, for Earth's survival depended on it. The bunker was unlike anything anyone in the group had ever seen. Its steel walls gleamed faintly under harsh fluorescent lights, and the air smelled sterile, almost clinical. Rows of computers lined the perimeter, their screens displaying streams of data that flickered too quickly for the untrained eye to comprehend. Scientists in white lab coats bustled about, their faces tense with urgency as they worked on machines that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. In the center of the room stood a large table covered in maps, blueprints, and alien artifacts, some glowing softly, others emitting low hums or pulses of light. Sarah, still clutching her trembling hands together, took it all in with wide eyes. "What is this place?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of activity around them. "This?" Mr. Thompson replied, gesturing toward the bustling room, "is one of several hidden facilities designed to combat extraterrestrial threats. Most people don't know it exists, not even government officials above a certain clearance level." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "For decades, humanity has been monitored by advanced civilizations. Some are peaceful, observing us from afar. Others, not so much. The Vernok fall into the latter category. Their technology far surpasses ours, and their goal is simple: domination." A young man in the group, a college student named Alex, raised his hand hesitantly, as though he were back in class. But why now? Why attack Earth when they've been watching us for centuries? Mr. Thompson nodded, acknowledging the question. "It's not just about timing, it's about opportunity. Humanity has reached a critical point where our technological advancements could pose a threat to their plans. By striking now, they aim to neutralize us before we become too powerful to control." The explanation did little to ease the tension in the room. People shifted uncomfortably, exchanging uneasy glances. The weight of what they were facing pressed down on them like an invisible force. "Okay," Sarah said finally, her voice firmer. "Now, so what's the plan? How do we fight back against something so beyond us?" At this, Mr. Thompson allowed himself a small, weary smile. "That's where you come in." He led the group to the central table, where a scientist was analyzing one of the glowing orbs Mr. Thompson had brought from the bank. The orb hovered gently above the surface, rotating slowly as if alive. "These devices," Mr. Thompson explained, tapping the orb lightly, "are prototypes salvaged from previous encounters with the Vernok. Each one serves a specific purpose: communication, defense, reconnaissance. But they're incomplete. Without understanding their full capabilities, we can't use them effectively." One of the scientists, a woman with sharp features and glasses perched on her nose, stepped forward. "We've made progress decoding some of the symbols on these objects," she said, pointing to the crystalline tablet. "But it's slow work. Every second counts, and we need more hands." "Hands?" The group exchanged confused looks. What could ordinary civilians possibly contribute to such a high-stakes operation? "You may not realize it," Mr. Thompson continued, addressing the unspoken doubt, "but each of you has skills that can help us survive. Some of you are quick thinkers, others have technical knowledge or physical endurance. Even those who feel powerless right now will find strength when it matters most." His words carried a quiet conviction that resonated deeply. Slowly, the group began to nod, resolve replacing fear in their expressions. Over the next hour, they were divided into teams based on their abilities. Sarah, who had experience with customer service and problem solving, was assigned to assist the communications team. Alex, whose major was computer science, joined the tech specialists trying to decode the alien language embedded in the artifacts. Others helped organize supplies, fortify defenses, or gather intelligence using drones sent out to scout the area. As the hours passed, the bunker became a hive of activity. Despite the overwhelming odds stacked against them, a sense of purpose settled over the group. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt like they were doing something meaningful, even if it was just a small part of a larger effort. But the calm didn't last long. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon outside, casting the world into shadow, alarms blared throughout the bunker. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the room in an ominous glow. Everyone froze, their hearts pounding as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. "They're here," Mr. Thompson announced grimly, his voice cutting through the chaos. On one of the monitors, surveillance footage showed a squad of mechanical creatures approaching the entrance. They moved with unnatural precision, their sleek bodies glinting menacingly in the dim light. Each creature resembled a hybrid of insect and machine, with razor-sharp limbs and glowing red eyes that scanned their surroundings relentlessly. "Weapons!" shouted one of the soldiers, rushing to distribute firearms and other defensive tools to the group. Sarah hesitated, staring at the gun thrust into her hands. She had never held one before, let alone fired it. Could she really defend herself and others against such terrifying foes? Before she could dwell on the thought, the bunker doors shuddered violently under the force of repeated blows. Metal groaned and buckled, sending sparks flying across the floor. "We can't hold them off forever," Mr. Thompson said urgently. "We need to activate the EMP device." "The what?" Alex asked, panic creeping into his voice. "It's a weapon designed to disable electronic systems within a certain radius," Mr. Thompson explained quickly. "If we deploy it correctly, it should neutralize the invaders' machines, at least temporarily." "But won't it affect our equipment too?" Sarah interjected. "It will," Mr. Thompson admitted, "which is why we'll only have a short window to escape once it's activated. After that, we'll need to rely on stealth." The group exchanged nervous glances but nodded in agreement. There was no time to argue. Together they moved toward the bunker's main control room, where the EMP device, a bulky apparatus resembling a generator, was stored. As they prepared to activate it, the doors burst open with a deafening crash. The mechanical creatures poured inside, their movements swift and deadly. Chaos erupted instantly as gunfire filled the air, drowning out screams and shouts. "Now!" Mr. Thompson yelled, flipping the switch on the EMP device. A blinding flash of light engulfed the room, followed by an eerie silence. The creatures froze mid-motion, their glowing eyes dimming until they collapsed onto the floor, lifeless. For a moment, everyone stood frozen, catching their breath. Then, without wasting another second, Mr. Thompson motioned for the group to follow him. "Move. Now," he urged, leading them through a narrow tunnel that branched off from the main bunker. The tunnel was dark and damp, its walls rough and uneven. The only source of light came from portable lanterns carried by the soldiers. Every step echoed loudly, making it difficult to tell whether they were truly safe or being followed. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a dense forest blanketed by moonlight. The air smelled fresh and cool, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic confines of the bunker. Ahead, nestled between towering trees, stood a cluster of makeshift shelters surrounded by armed guards. "This is the safe zone," Mr. Thompson announced, his voice tinged with relief. Safe zone? It was far from luxurious, but it offered hope. A chance to regroup, strategize, and prepare for whatever came next. As the group filed into the camp, greeted by weary but determined survivors, one thing became clear. The battle was far from over, but neither was humanity's spirit, and that, perhaps, was their greatest weapon yet. The safe zone was a stark reminder of how quickly life could change. What had once been a quiet forest now buzzed with activity, its tranquility shattered by the hum of generators, crackling radios, and hushed conversations among survivors. Tents were scattered unevenly across the clearing, their canvas tops fluttering softly in the cool night breeze. Fires burned low in metal barrels, casting flickering shadows on the faces of those gathered around them. Some sat silently, staring into the flames as though searching for answers in the embers. Others whispered urgently, sharing theories about the invaders or discussing plans for what came next. Sarah found herself drawn to one such group, where Mr. Thompson stood explaining the situation to a cluster of newcomers who had arrived just hours earlier. His voice was steady but weary, carrying the weight of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment, and yet still felt unprepared for its enormity. "The Vernock aren't just here to conquer," he said, holding up the crystalline tablet they had salvaged from the bank. Its symbols glowed faintly in the firelight, pulsating like a heartbeat. "They're harvesting resources, minerals, energy, even living beings. If we don't stop them, Earth will become nothing more than a wasteland." A young woman clutching her child tightly asked the question everyone was too afraid to voice. "How do we fight something so powerful? We don't have weapons like theirs. We don't even understand half the stuff you brought with you." Her words hung heavy in the air, echoing the doubts that lingered in every heart. It was true. They were outmatched in every way imaginable. But Mr. Thompson didn't flinch. Instead, he knelt down beside her, meeting her gaze with unwavering resolve. "You're right," he admitted. "We can't match their technology, not yet. But we have something they don't: adaptability. Humanity has survived countless challenges because we learn, grow, and find ways to turn our weaknesses into strengths. That's why we'll win, not through brute force, but through ingenuity and determination." His response seemed to calm the crowd slightly, though skepticism remained, etched on many faces. Sarah watched quietly from the sidelines, her mind racing. She wasn't a soldier or a scientist. She was just an ordinary person thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Yet somehow, over the past few hours, she had begun to feel less powerless. Maybe it was the adrenaline coursing through her veins, or maybe it was the realization that doing something, no matter how small, was better than giving up entirely. As the meeting dispersed, Sarah approached Mr. Thompson cautiously. He was leaning against a tree, his eyes closed as though trying to gather strength. "Can I help?" she asked hesitantly. He opened his eyes and studied her for a moment before nodding. "Yes. Everyone has a role to play, Sarah. Even if it doesn't feel important at first, trust me, it is." Over the next several days, the safe zone transformed into a hub of organized resistance. Survivors worked tirelessly, pooling their skills and knowledge to create tools, fortify defenses, and develop strategies for counterattacks. The scientists continued decoding the alien artifacts, piecing together fragments of information that hinted at vulnerabilities in the Vernock systems. Meanwhile, scouts ventured beyond the camp's borders, gathering intelligence on enemy movements and mapping potential escape routes. Sarah threw herself into her assigned tasks, determined to contribute however she could. Her role involved coordinating communication between different teams within the camp, ensuring that vital information reached the right people at the right time. At first, she doubted her ability to handle such responsibility, but as the hours turned into days, she grew more confident. She began noticing patterns in the data collected by scouts, suggesting locations where the Vernock's forces might be weaker. These observations earned her respect from others, including Alex, who often sought her input during strategy meetings. Alex, too, had found his footing in the chaos. Working alongside the tech specialists, he became instrumental in deciphering the alien language embedded in the artifacts. His breakthrough came late one evening when he identified a repeating sequence of symbols that corresponded to coordinates. "I think I've got it," he exclaimed, practically leaping out of his chair. "These numbers, they're pointing to specific locations on Earth. Could they be targeting sites rich in resources?" Mr. Thompson examined the translated data carefully, his expression lighting up with cautious optimism. "If these are targets, then we may have a chance to strike back. By disrupting their operations at these key points, we can buy ourselves time to regroup and strengthen our defenses." The discovery reignited hope within the camp. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a tangible plan, a way to take action instead of simply reacting to the Vernock's attacks. Preparations for the mission were swift but meticulous. Volunteers stepped forward to join reconnaissance teams tasked with infiltrating the marked locations. Among them was Sarah, who insisted on participating despite Mr. Thompson's initial reluctance. You're needed here, he argued gently. Your work organizing communications is critical. And so is yours, she countered. But someone has to make sure the rest of us stay connected. Besides, I won't sit idly while others risk their lives. Her determination won him over, and soon she found herself part of a small team led by Alex. Together they set out under the cover of darkness, armed with modified devices reverse-engineered from the alien artifacts. Their goal was simple: sabotage the Vernok's resource extraction efforts without being detected. The journey was grueling, testing both their physical endurance and mental resilience. They navigated treacherous terrain, avoided patrols of mechanical creatures, and relied on stealth to move undetected. When they finally reached the target site, an abandoned mine now swarming with alien machinery, the sight took their breath away. Massive drills carved deep into the earth, extracting glowing minerals that pulsed with energy. Surrounding the operation were clusters of drones and sentry units, their red eyes scanning relentlessly for intruders. This is insane, Alex muttered, crouching behind a rocky outcrop. How are we supposed to get past all that? We focus on one thing at a time, Sarah replied firmly. Remember the plan: disable the main power source, then use the EMP device to shut everything down. After that, we run like hell. With trembling hands, Alex activated a drone-like gadget they'd brought along. It zipped through the air, emitting a frequency designed to disrupt the sentry's sensors temporarily. As the drones faltered, the team seized the opportunity to slip closer to the core of the operation. Reaching the central control unit proved harder than expected. Every step felt like walking a tightrope, each sound magnified tenfold in the tense silence. Finally, Alex planted a small explosive charge near the power generator, while Sarah monitored the surrounding area for signs of danger. Done, he whispered, signaling for her to retreat. Just as they turned to leave, a sharp metallic screech pierced the air. One of the sentry units had recovered faster than anticipated, its glowing eyes locking onto their position. "Run!" Sarah shouted, grabbing Alex's arm and pulling him toward the exit. Behind them, the explosion detonated with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves rippling through the ground. Lights flickered and died as the EMP device activated, plunging the site into darkness. The team sprinted through the chaos, hearts pounding as they dodged falling debris and collapsing structures. When they finally reached the safety of the forest, exhaustion hit them like a tidal wave. Collapsing onto the damp soil, they laughed nervously, tears streaming down their faces. "We did it," Alex breathed, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "For now," Sarah added, gazing back at the smoldering ruins. "But this is only the beginning." Though their victory was small, it marked a turning point. For the first time, humanity had struck back, not with brute force, but with courage, ingenuity, and teamwork. And as word of their success spread throughout the safe zone, hope began to bloom once more. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit refused to yield. The sabotage mission at the alien mining site sent ripples through the resistance. News of their success spread quickly, igniting a spark of hope among the survivors. For the first time since the invasion began, people dared to believe that humanity might have a fighting chance. The safe zone buzzed with renewed energy as volunteers poured in, eager to join the cause. Tents were rearranged into training grounds. Makeshift weapons workshops sprang up, and strategy meetings became daily rituals. Sarah found herself at the heart of it all, her role expanding beyond mere coordination. She had proven herself not only as a communicator but also as a leader, someone who could inspire others even when fear threatened to overwhelm them. Her quiet confidence earned her respect from both seasoned fighters and newcomers alike. Meanwhile, Alex continued working tirelessly with the tech specialists, reverse engineering more alien devices and developing tools that could level the playing field against the Vernok. But despite these small victories, the reality of their situation remained grim. The aliens were relentless, their forces growing stronger with each passing day. Reports from scouts indicated that the Vernok were amassing an army of mechanical creatures near what appeared to be their central command hub, a towering structure that loomed over the horizon like a dark monolith. If they couldn't destroy this hub, humanity's chances of survival would dwindle rapidly. It's now or never, Mr. Thompson declared during one of the strategy meetings. His voice carried the weight of finality, silencing the room instantly. If we don't take out their command center, they'll crush us completely. We've delayed them for weeks, but delays won't win this war. The plan was risky, and everyone knew it. A team would need to infiltrate the heavily guarded alien stronghold, plant explosives deep within its core, and escape before detonation. The odds of success were slim, but there was no alternative. Failure meant extinction. "I'm going," Sarah announced firmly, stepping forward before anyone else could volunteer. "No," Mr. Thompson said immediately, shaking his head. "You're too valuable here. Without you, communication breaks down and everything falls apart. And without taking out their command center, none of us will survive anyway," she countered, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I've been part of every step of this fight so far. Let me see it through to the end." After a long pause, Mr. Thompson relented with a heavy sigh. "Fine. But you stick close to Alex. He knows the tech better than anyone, and he'll keep you alive. If things go south..." Alex nodded solemnly, though his hands trembled slightly at the thought of leading such a dangerous mission. Still, he understood the gravity of the task ahead. Together, they assembled a small elite team composed of skilled fighters, engineers, and strategists, all willing to risk everything for the sake of humanity. The final assault under the cover of darkness, the team moved silently toward the alien command hub. The journey was harrowing, fraught with peril at every turn. Patrols of mechanical creatures prowled the perimeter, their glowing red eyes scanning the terrain relentlessly. Drones buzzed overhead, emitting low-frequency hums that made it nearly impossible to move undetected. "We're running out of time," whispered Alex as they crouched behind a cluster of rocks, watching a group of sentries pass by. "If we don't get inside soon, they'll catch us." "Patience," Sarah reminded him, her voice calm despite the tension gnawing at her nerves. "One wrong move and we're finished." Finally, after what felt like hours of creeping through shadows, they reached the base of the massive structure. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the faint light of the stars above. There were no visible doors or entrances, just smooth, impenetrable walls. "How do we get in?" someone asked, frustration creeping into their voice. Alex pulled out a device resembling a handheld scanner, one of the gadgets they had salvaged earlier. "This should help," he said, pressing a button on its side. The device emitted a soft, whirring sound as it scanned the wall, searching for weak points or hidden access panels. After a moment, a section of the wall rippled and dissolved, revealing a narrow corridor bathed in eerie green light. "Let's move," Sarah urged, motioning for the team to follow her inside. The interior of the command hub was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls pulsed faintly, as though alive, and strange symbols glowed along the floor and ceiling. Mechanical drones floated silently through the corridors, their movements precise and calculated. Every step echoed loudly, forcing the team to tread carefully to avoid detection. Using maps created by earlier scouting missions, they navigated deeper into the labyrinthine structure until they reached the core chamber. At its center stood a massive machine, an intricate web of wires, circuits, and glowing crystals that pulsed with otherworldly energy. This was the heart of the Virnox operations, the source of their power and control. "Plant the charges. Here," Alex instructed, pointing to several key points around the machine. "Make sure they're evenly spaced. We need maximum impact." As the team worked quickly, setting explosives and arming detonators, a sudden alarm blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "They know we're here," shouted one of the fighters, raising his weapon as mechanical creatures began pouring into the room. "Keep moving," Sarah yelled, firing her gun to hold off the advancing enemies. "We're almost done." Alex fumbled with the last charge, his hands shaking under pressure. Just as he secured it in place, a drone swooped down, knocking him off balance. Before it could strike again, Sarah fired a shot, sending the creature crashing to the ground. "Thanks," Alex gasped, scrambling to his feet. "Don't mention it," she replied tersely. "Now let's get out of here." The escape with. The charges set. The team activated the timers and sprinted toward the exit. Behind them, the alarms grew louder, accompanied by the deafening roar of approaching reinforcements. The corridors seemed endless, each corner revealing new threats. "We're not gonna make it," cried one of the team members, panic rising. In his voice, "Yes, we are," Sarah snapped, grabbing his arm and pulling him forward. "Keep moving." Finally, they burst out of the structure and into the open air. The sky was already beginning to lighten with the first hints of dawn. In the distance, the alien army gathered, preparing for a final assault. 10 seconds, Alex shouted, checking the countdown on his detonator. They ran as fast as they could, putting as much distance between themselves and the command hub as possible. Just as they dove behind a rocky ridge for cover, the explosion rocked the earth beneath their feet. A blinding flash of light erupted, followed by a deafening boom that shook the very air around them. When the dust settled, the team climbed to their feet, staring in awe at the wreckage. The once imposing alien structure was gone, reduced to smoldering ruins. The mechanical creatures lay motionless, their systems fried by the blast. "It's over," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "For now," Mr. Thompson added, appearing beside them. He had led a secondary team to provide backup, ensuring their escape route remained clear. "The Vernock may have lost this battle, but they won't give up easily. We need to stay vigilant." Though exhausted and battered, the survivors returned to the safe zone triumphant. Word of their victory spread quickly, inspiring others to continue resisting. Slowly but surely, pockets of humanity began reclaiming their world, not through brute force but through unity, courage, and ingenuity. As Sarah looked out over the forest, now bathed in the golden light of sunrise, she allowed herself a moment of hope. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but one thing was certain: humanity's spirit burned brighter than any alien threat. And as long as that flame endured, Earth would rise again.